Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. Infinite QE seems to be the economic law of the land now, of the world, but things don't always turn out the way you hope or expect, and Andy Hoffman isn't expecting anything good from this latest round of futility. Andy, welcome back. How are you?
Good, Kerry. I must say you are a master of the segue.
Yeah, well, that's everybody's got their thing, you know.
Yeah.
You're the master of the rant, and I'm the master of the segue. And there's a lot to rant about today, isn't there?
Oh, it just never stops. People ask me all the time, how do you write so much? And the fact is, I really am cutting it much shorter if I was going to say everything I want to say. And I mean, when you wake up every morning, there's what I call horrible headlines, and there's a dozen or more every day. And that's what happens in a system that's falling apart. It's a big world with many moving parts.
Yeah, it's not just falling apart, it's imploding. It's just disintegrating in its place. You know what I mean? It's like when they take down one of those buildings in Las Vegas and everyone has a party, and there's fireworks, and they blow the building, and the building just crumbles from the inside out. And that's what's happening with the world economy.
Yeah, the only reason that we're still here talking rather than running from armies and the police is because they've literally chased everyone out of the equity markets to the point where there's nothing left in it. We're talking about record low volumes, and most of it is government HFT programs. So the Dow literally never goes down anymore. It doesn't even have volatility, and so it gets to the point where all they have left is trying to influence perception. And each day, the gap between the reality of the world and what a market like the Dow is telling you gets larger. And that's where it hits the road, because at some point when you start to see all the social unrest and the inflation and the unemployment, then it really doesn't matter what the Dow is doing. And actually, I've been writing, people who read me know that every single day I write about the Dow and talk about what it's doing. And the last week or two, I said, you know what, I'm actually thinking about not even including the Dow anymore. I no longer look at the dollar index, and pretty soon I'm not going to be looking at the Dow anymore.
Yeah, what's left of it that really has any meaning whatsoever, that there's, they're all just rigged. Every market is rigged. I talked to Charles Biederman, and I said, Charles, can you think of one market in the world that isn't rigged? And he was silent for, I'd say, a good 3-4 seconds, Andy. And he said, no, every market on the planet is rigged. So much for price discovery, so much for the inhabitants of the world being free to go about their business and use price information in the Austrian sense to plot their affairs, to plan their businesses, to make decisions. Basically, you're better off going to Vegas or using a magic 8-ball. I'm going to just stop planning, stop using spreadsheets. I'm getting an 8-ball. I think you can get an app for the iPhone. And whenever I need to make a business decision, I'm just going to ask the friggin' 8-ball, because that's about how useful all the markets are for figuring stuff out.
Well, again, the gap between the reality of the industrial world behind the averages and what the averages actually tell you is getting wider and wider, just like the difference between the paper and the physical markets. And at some point, the gap becomes so wide that the entire world starts to ignore the paper market or the Dow Jones barometer of what the industrial world is doing. And that's the point we're at right now, because I've said all along that the only tool they had left was market manipulation, propaganda, and money printing. And at some point, these things don't work anymore, which is per the title of what you're talking about. They're not getting economic improvement. And at this point, where people are starting to not even pay attention to what they are, the propaganda they are putting out, because it so does not reflect the real world.
Yeah, I mean, look at these stupid job numbers. Look at the inflation rate. The only thing I kind of believe, they've been cooking these police statistics in New York City since Nanny Bloomberg came into power, since he became ruler. I think he was elected, but now he's a ruler. And, there's a policy in place that a robbery becomes petty larceny, and, I guess murders become suicides, although they haven't accused that, but
manslaughter.
Yeah, greatly reducing the statistics to keep up the image that New York City is the safest big city in the country, and yet the people of New York City know otherwise. So every statistic that you encounter, you need to question and probably ignore. If you can't prove it, it should be ignored. And really, that's the way you always should have been thinking, but you had a certain confidence level in the leadership of the country that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, that's the whole point of the people like us out there, to point that out, because a lot of people just don't want to see that. But fortunately for us, sometimes reality is so stark that even the layman or those in the greatest amount of denial actually start to see it. And, that's the only way that we can move on to something better, is when enough people see it.
Yeah, and, there was that thing about Romney talking about 47% of the people aren't going to vote for him because they're on the dole. And not exactly accurate, because a lot of people are on the dole really despise being on it, but there's no other way for them to survive. But the point is that the dole, however many people are on it, and arguably we all are if we own homes. If you own a home, if you pay state income tax, whatever, you're deducting anything from your taxes, you're getting a subsidy from your government. But, when the truth comes out, man, they just do their best to try to suppress it and ridicule the speaker of it, even when he's running for president, or maybe especially when.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Obama said we didn't build a thing, and it gets taken out of context. And then Romney says some dumb thing about Latinos, and it gets taken out of context. The fact is, I was saying before, I've never seen an election in my entire life where I really despise both candidates this much. And it's also the first time we've ever seen an election where a candidate is running purely on the platform of, I am literally going to say nothing and just assume that people will vote me in because they don't like what we have here. Yeah. And it's, again, this is not anti-Republican, anti-Romney. I mean, I hate them both. But his strategy is, I will not tell anyone anything I'm going to do. And I want people to vote me in. And I can do whatever I want, because no, I'm not telling you if I'm for abortion, if I'm against it, if I'm for bailouts, if I'm for Obamacare. I'm just going to say nothing and try to get elected because he thinks people are that unhappy. And yeah, there are people that are on the dole, but they're going to be on the dole under Romney too. And what's the difference?
Yeah,
the country, everyone's unemployed. They still need to be on the dole.
Absolutely, it's the evil of the two lessers. And it reminds me, the only thing I haven't heard Romney say is that he has a secret plan to rescue the economy, but he can't tell it to you like Nixon did. He was going to get us out of Vietnam. He had a secret plan. Of course, it took 3.5 years for that plan to kick in so that he could get reelected. But do you remember that? Nixon, he had a secret plan to get us out of Vietnam.
Well, I don't remember Nixon's plan because I was just being born at the time. But I do remember John McCain specifically saying, I can get bin Laden. And if you elect me, I'll tell you how to do it, as if he wouldn't do it unless you elected him. and on the topic of lesser of evils, it's funny you should say it, because both David Sheckman and I have written articles recently about how we will vote for the lesser of two evils because we have no choice. And a bunch of people have emailed saying, how could you do that? You have to vote for who you want. And I said, no, I'm a practical person. I can't vote for Ron Paul when he's not running.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
You're
vote
gonna
for
write
someone
in.
who,
You're gonna
I
write
mean,
it in, huh?
I'll write it in. But the point is, I mean, you have to work with what you got. And, whether it's Romney or Obama, I don't think it really matters for the country. But I'm just trying to be practical. That's all. I mean, I voted for Ross Perot in 1992. I thought he had a chance. I didn't vote for him in 96 because I knew he didn't have a chance. That's
Exactly.
all.
Same here.
So,
Same
yeah.
here. Yeah, it's you could decide not to vote, and that's fine. Like honestly, if you're in New York or California, you shouldn't vote, because it ain't going to make any difference other than for the
Mhm.
other office holders that you're interested in. Your vote for president is more than canceled out. If you're for
Mhm.
Romney and if you're for Obama, you know what? You're so far ahead. Just stay home. Don't bother with it. There's no point.
Although
But
in New Jersey, I think was it the last election? It was always been a blue state, and then it became a red state. So you never know.
yeah,
But the odds are a state like New York is in the bag as a blue state. And I live in Colorado. It's a swing state each time, but it doesn't have many delegates, so it's not going to matter anyway. It's really more a matter of principle. I like to feel like I'm part of the process, and that somehow I'm trying to help myself, even though there's really no way of winning. So
yeah, yeah. Well, whoever wins, the big loser is going to be the American people. You can count on that. You could take that to the bank, although your too big to fail bank probably won't be around much longer, regardless who wins.
it'll be around. It just won't be a bank. It'll be a government agency like Fannie Mae.
Yeah, yeah. They'll just call it MAC at the end of every
Yeah.
bank. It'll be BOA MAC,
Yeah.
Citibank MAC, JP Morgan MAC, right? Wells Fargo MAC, because it's
Yeah.
just, it'll just be a MAC and that'll be
Well,
it.
well, the
So
JP Morgan will actually turn into Congress. They'll throw out Congress and the executives of JP Morgan will sit in those 400 seats or whatever.
I thought they had already done that, but not out in the open. But
No,
that's
they just buy them. They don't actually sit in the seats yet.
yeah. And
So
since the Federal Reserve was founded, literally the government is owned by the banks. There's no question about it. The financial sector owns the government, and that's the real reason why nothing is going to change, regardless who's there. They'll both pay lip service to the Constitution. Perhaps Obama is more inclined to be a dictator than Romney. I don't know if that's true or not. Perhaps. We
so
don't
we don't.
know because Romney hasn't been president yet, but we could speculate and say that might be the case, and that might be the only reason voting for one over the other. But I'm so tempted not to bother in New York. It's just an exercise in futility, and I don't want to be part of the system that elects one of those idiots.
Well, look,
It bothers me.
the system's going down either way, and of course that's why they have to hold gold and silver down because they are the fastest way for the system to break immediately is for the cartel to get broken. But even if Ron Paul was on the ballot and somehow won, and it wouldn't happen. All I ever could expect from him was for him to be a diplomat because the system's going and he knows and he'll probably be part of helping it go so we can get something better. But I just would like to have a diplomat in office. And because there's a lot of people, look at all this anti-American hatred that's spreading. And it's not a coincidence that it picked up just as QE3 was announced. And, I'm really scared because of how much the world is starting to shun Americans for what they've done militarily and through the printing press.
Yeah, well, it's just that the system that is better than the one that doesn't exist yet that you don't know. And
Mhm.
but we're getting to the point where the future system is starting to look better all the time. But yeah, the anti-Americanism and all that, of course, it's all our fault, but to some extent there's some truth to it, but more so uh the fact is the world went along with it for a long time, and you know everybody's responsible for it at this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One other thing, Andy, we've got Japanese infinite QE. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's truly amazing how after 23 years of QE that this and ZERP or NERP, whatever they call it over there, how this land of the setting sun gets worse and worse to the point where we're now starting to see the beginning of tensions with China. It's just like at some point these people who have been forced into these treasury bonds and watching their nation fall apart are going to get upset, and it's no surprise to me that between that and Fukushima that there's a lot of anger that's building over there. And today they announced they had they've had a $900 billion QE program ongoing, and they raised it today to over $1 trillion. So they basically added 125 billion of new, simply just printing money and buying stocks and bonds with it. And I've been saying all along, when they do this stuff now, they don't even care about their stock and bond markets and housing markets. They know they're dead. They're just trying to get the yen to go down, because they're hoping that all the manufacturing that's leaving to go to China will come back. And guess what? It keeps going up. Today, the Nikkei barely went up, and the yen is exploding higher, if you can imagine, to near an all-time high against the dollar, which shows you, A, how bad the dollar is, and B, how when it comes to stuff like printing money, everyone loses. They can't even get their currency down. And I just wanted to read a quote to you that I wrote today. I never put my own quotes in quote of the day, but I put this one on the top. I wrote, just as the enigmatic possibility of zero U.S. unemployment is possible if labor participation sinks low enough, it is entirely conceivable the Bank of Japan could exponentially increase QE, yet watch the yen explode higher against the dollar.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So it's having the opposite effect. So law of unintended consequences, or does that mean that we're falling apart faster than them? The race to the bottom, we're winning it?
Well, it's kind of this, not Moore's law. What's the law where whatever you do just doesn't work?
I think that's called marriage, but
well, you can cut that part out if my wife listens. But my point is, no one gets what they want. When you print money, everyone loses. You have inflation, you have unemployment, and the more you do, the more that things get screwed up. And I mean, we're talking about the laws of gravity are getting broken here, where the reaction to printing money is for the currency to go higher. And if you remember correctly with Japan, remember when Fukushima happened, the same thing happened. The yen surged higher, and they had to have the G7 have an emergency meeting to knock the yen down when its nation was falling apart because of a tsunami and a nuclear holocaust. So again, all of these things are almost unexplainable by the laws of physics and certainly by the laws of economics. But this is the as you say, the unintended consequences of printing too much money. It's truly the terminal phases of the end game beginning. And how will it end? I don't know. It could very well end with the dollar collapsing against the yen because the Japanese bank decides to print unlimited money, for all we know.
Yeah, that would be the ultimate indignity, I think, for the dollar. It's like you're brought down because you're not inflating as much as Japan.
That's right. At some point, the people will be going $40 billion a month. That's all. I mean, come on. The Japanese are doing $100 billion a month, and it obviously can only end badly. But these are unprecedented times, as this is the only time in history this has ever been attempted, and it's shocking to me. I'm encouraged, by the way, by the increase in demand I've seen in precious metals, but more importantly, the increase in acceptance of the kind of things that we're talking about, i.e., the truth. But it's really sad because I could see that almost the entire world is not going to be able to protect themselves beforehand.
Hey, and just so you know, and I'm sure you've seen this in your numbers, and I'm sure you've seen it in Miles Franklin's business, but we have doubled listenership in the past 5 weeks. We're getting double the downloads. We're getting over double the amount of visits to financialsurvivalnetwork.com, and that to me is the ultimate vindication or confirmation that everything you're saying is true, that people are starting to get it. But unfortunately, could be too late. Hey, just to let you know, I got some emergency preparedness food from our new sponsor, preparewise.com. And if you go there, type Lutz in the discount box, they got a special deal for you. And What about these fake gold bars? We got one now in New York for the first time, right?
Right, and actually, I'm happy when I see those because it enables me to preach some of the things that we talk about at Miles Franklin. For one, that you really should only be buying 1 ounce. When it comes to coins for gold, 1 ounce coins is the way to go. I mean, fractionals are have high premiums and they're getting too expensive for bartering, even if you wanted to use them for that purpose. And at the same time, the very high size ones like these are 100. I think this was a 10 ounce bar.
Yeah,
But
10
usually,
ounce
yeah.
Pamp, Swiss bar.
But anything of size like 10 ounce, 100 ounce, it's just it's worth so much. It's not much you can trade it for. But also, it is prone to these kind of things. Even though the tungsten salting actually is far rarer than the anti-gold press will make it out to be. But either way, look, it's cost prohibitive to do something like that in a 1 ounce coin. I don't know if there's ever been an instance of a 1 ounce coin ever being salted. I mean, to drill out and take a tiny piece and to not get caught by the skinners. I mean, it's not going to happen. So people don't buy 10 ounce of gold bars. Don't buy 100 ounce. Certainly don't buy 1,000 ounce. But realize this is really more propaganda than anything. We have no idea if there's thousands of these bars or there's only a handful. And if they are, they're only going to be in the big quantities.
Yeah, I rather doubt that it's that prevalent. Maybe they're doing the 100 or the 400 ounce bars, the LBMA bars.
Yep.
But, smaller than that, yeah, there could be some out there. But, the key is when you got a counterfeit product, you want it to pass through as few hands as possible. And the 400 ounce bars are going to be good for that. Not that many people are going to be handling them. There's not that much demand, although you could argue they're sophisticated people dealing with it. But hey, I guess the thing's got to be near a work of art to really get through anybody. And there's probably a limited number of places in the world where that can happen. So anyway, and glad we covered all that. We will talk to you next week. Pay no attention to prices, to numbers, to any statistics. Ignore them all other than the amount of gold and silver that you have in your pocket and you have in your possession. That's all that matters. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com, get the newsletter, and listen to numerous interviews with Andy and other experts. They're telling you the same thing. All right, And, till next week.
Same here. Talk to you soon.
Be well.